Hare Krishna. So, welcome everybody. Firstly, I would like to thank ISKCON Balramdesh for providing us an opportunity to the viewers. And special thanks to our mentors, His Grace Bhagat Prabhu, His Grace Kamsidhar Prabhu, and Mohini Mataji. We seek your blessings to perform a service in which we can glorify the Lord. So, kindly excuse us.
Prabhu, the audio is very low.
Check. Prabhu is okay now?
No, you should keep this near.
So kindly forgive us for any shortcomings. We are still aspiring to be better devotees in the service of Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Vasti Dishatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Okay. So I'll be mainly speaking on the 10th canto, which is Vrindavan Leela. Lately we are post Janmashtami now, which was a beautiful festival. It was the most auspicious festival for all of us, as we always await that the Lord should appear on this planet and enter our hearts, and we all have been fasting and we've been doing some austerities. So in this period of Kali,
No, Rasas Krishna Prabhu's audio is not there. They have not connected his audio. You have disconnected his audio. Rasas Krishna Prabhu's audio is coming from Vamshi Prabhu. Like this. Okay.
Okay. So I was saying that post Janmashtami, we are right now proceeding with our glorious hearts and continuous devotion, and I'm sure all of us have asked the Lord to enter the heart and perform like more services to Sri Krishna. We'll give the example of how Krishna recognizes all of us. It's very important to understand that we just not doing service and Krishna is not noticing that. Because if we really do some service, Krishna will definitely enter our hearts. He'll come running towards us. Many of us forget that yes, Krishna, I mean, he might be there, he's there, and we're not able to realize us. We're not able to, open our eyes and actually feel that Krishna is coming. So we all know that Yashoda Maya, she was turning the butter. I'm sure you all know of the Damodar Leela. So while Yashoda Maya was turning the butter, what was she doing? She was just not turning the butter for herself or whatever. She was doing a service for Krishna. So, and she was not just doing service, she was remembering Krishna and she was glorifying the Lord while doing the service. That's what matters because most of the times, many times, many of us are doing the service and we're talking about something else, not thinking about the Lord and the glories of the Lord. So now what happens is that as soon as Mata was, in the devotion of churning the butter, Krishna wakes up and he comes running to her. So we need to understand that when we are doing a service, we need to be in that same bhava. We need to have the same mode. So in short, when we glorify, chant, and hear especially, see eating and speaking is easy, but hearing is very difficult. So hearing is very important. And then we will see Krishna is coming running to us, to all of us. Now Krishna is actually coming running to us, I feel, slowly. So this is the recommended way by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this age of Christ. So the first chapter of Vrindavan Leela, it's a feast. Now it's a feast of Hari Katha. I'm sure when you guys will read or you will, I'm just going to summarize all of these things. It's a feast. We all will hear and we'll all feel pleasure in our senses. Okay, the first chapter is where Yashoda, Devaki and Vasudev, they are in the prison house of Kamsa. And Vasudev is trying to convince Kamsa so that he can release Devaki. Because of course, she's been, she's been in the prison and he wants, a devotee is always merciful. He's trying his level best and he's trying to convince Kamsa. Kamsa is a demon. He's trying to convince Kamsa that, please release her, I'm here as a liability, you can always release her. He was constantly trying, but his efforts were unsuccessful. Now, many a times we are convincing our parents, can we get this, can we get that, and our parents are like, no, or we are convincing our managers that, can we have a hike in our salary, and he's like a demon, no. But, so what happens to us that we are having a great anxiety in our hearts and our minds, and we are just baffled. But we need to know that Vasudev is Dhira Purush. He had that Dhirta in him. Okay, he was very, very relaxed. However, he had that anxiety in his mind, but he was externally smiling. Many times we are doing that, we're having so many thought process and we're just externally smiling, but we're not in peace. So, this is the nature of the material world. That is what Srila Prabhupada is saying. That this is the nature of the material world. So, the world is very complex. As we all are growing up, some are in school, some are in university, some are working. Now I've come to a stage where I'm working and I'm trying to figure out that, it's actually very complex and complicated. The people are complicated, the jobs are complicated. Slowly, the schools were easy, the universities are getting tougher, and in the future, everything else is getting a little more tougher to understand. That how these people are so complex, how are they so complicated. However, we need to understand one important thing. We all are so lucky that we're sitting over here, we're having great mentors sitting next to us, guiding us and giving us some service. And if you don't realize that, then it's a very bad, it's a misfortune that we're not able to open our eyes till now. If we have this thought, that's it. We will progress. We are going to progress very much. Okay? So this is what Srila Prabhupada is saying, that the world is so complex and complicated. So to execute one's duty, one cannot avoiding such diplomacy. Diplomacy of what? That the world is complex and it does not affect it. It will, definitely it will. But you have to keep the balance. Okay, we have to be dheer. We need to have that stability in us, and that is provided through Krishna consciousness. Okay. So the mind and the words and our actions, if they're not aligned together, we will never be in peace. That is the speciality of this material world. So when we are in contradiction to all these three things, mind, action, and words, our mind is somewhere else, our actions are somewhere else, we're chanting and we're thinking about something else, will not be in peace. We have to focus. We have to put our mind and words and actions in one place together. We have to work with it. That is when, without contradiction, we'll get peace. Because most of us will be like, okay, let's go somewhere far away from the city and we'll get peace. No, no, that's just external peace. What about the internal peace? Your mind is the machine. You have to put that into use. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he describes that this world is a salt mine. Now, if you put excess salt in your food, will you eat it? No, right? Why? Because salt is like too much salt and then we are gone. So anyone who enters this material world has to touch that, contact that salt. There is rarely will get that some sweetness, some sort of sweet, and that's like right now we are having that in Krishna consciousness. But however, we will still touch the salt. We will be affected by the modes of material nature. Okay, we cannot be untouched that with it, but we have to keep our weapon ready, our chanting beats, our association. So Basudev was also bound by these certain circumstances. Are you guys able to relate that he was also bound by these certain situations where he's been rejected constantly and he's just put down and he's like hopeless right now. So this is one part. The next chapter is that Krishna, he enters the womb of Devaki, and due to that she is looking extraordinarily effulgent. Now when we see exalted devotees, and we always feel that they're very they have a different charm altogether, and that is when we get attracted, like Srila Prabhupada. So the demons can see that. Kamsa could see that there is some glow going on with Devaki. There is some effulgence going on. However, these demons, they don't back out. They're like, okay, I'm greater, because they're in the mode of ignorance. They're just like they just want to revenge. They just want to gratify their sense that I'm the best, because that's what demons are made up of, right? So Prabhupada, he says in his purport that when a devotee is empowered by Krishna, that means when a devotee is empowered by Krishna's potencies through his energy, through his name, there's a different glory which comes in him, just like the sun. He will remove all the darkness. There will not be a tinge of darkness. And that is how we've got our mentors. That is how we need to acknowledge that we have our mentors and there's the right people to guide us and avoid the darkness. So contacting that person who is having that effulgence is very important to remove the darkness within us. And the demons will be stunned. The demons will be scared. The demons will not come near us. So any one of us can be extraordinary as instruments in the service of the Lord, as we are doing today. Knowing the process is very important. If you don't know the process, that's it. You're in the darkness again. So if you want to be saved from the darkness, we have to go towards the brightness. Now, Krishna is in the womb of who? Devaki, right? Now Krishna has the whole universe in him. But now Devaki, she is the reservoir of all the universes. Can you imagine this? She's having the whole universe within herself. Now Krishna can make all the impossible tasks as possible. We might have many things, that this is not going to happen. But if Krishna wants, it will happen. And that faith has to be put. That seed has to be grown. If the seed is not grown, then it will be like, no. That's determination should come. Yeah. Now, we all know that Devaki is in the prison house and she's just like effulgent, and however this was just covered, just like the when you're cooking, the fire is below the pot. That is how it was. However, this was not used properly. So Prabhupada says, Kamsa tried to arrest Krishna consciousness within his house. And what was the result of Kamsa? All the opulences, all the victory was vanquished. So sometimes, in our society, we have such leaders. So Prabhupada said that these misguiding leaders who are giving a wrong theory, of Krishna consciousness in Hogan, they should be stamped with a button called as SR, simply rascals. That is what it should be. So now moving forward, third chapter, what happens is that Krishna appears and Vasudev and Devaki, they're offering their prayers. And Krishna is ordering Vasudev immediately as soon as he's born, please carry me to Gokul. As soon as Krishna appears, he's giving the service. Okay, the situation is as such that they're in the prison house, and he's saying, "Go to the book, take me to Gokul." And there are guards around. He's handing
Haribol, voice, audio, stop.
Prabhu Rakshana, is it audible now?
Yes, Prabhu.
You have to hold it in your hand.
So when Gaudam Prabhu went to the medical college, he was speaking to the doctors, and of course the doctors are made so that they can treat patients and make their career successful, right? And he said that what if you all doctors start doing your careers, and all of you are failing and you're sending people back to God, right? You know, all are dying. What would they feel? They'll feel very unmotivated. And what if they get a VIP case? Imagine we have a big leader and there is pressure on the doctors that you have to save this person. How will you feel? You'll feel like, man, I've been, all the surgeries I've been doing, and this guy is, they are passing away. You will feel unmotivated, right? But there will be some who will have that thing. So we need to be among those some who have the determination. Otherwise, we'll also collapse. Same like how Srila Prabhupada. Now look at his determination. At the age of 70, he went to the West and established ISKCON. That is unimaginable. That is something extraordinary. That is powerful. Because why? He had that strong faith in Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada had many reversals in his life as well. You know, his business collapsed. His personal life had issues. His god brothers were leaving him, and there were other issues going around. Okay. However, with all these background, he was still moving forward and he was being brave. Now, brave does not mean that we end up going to kill people and we are arguing with them and we're like, no, we are brave. No. In the face of defeat and hopelessness, one doesn't lose hope in Krishna. It's easy to lose hope, that, oh, now everything is falling apart, and, this is the time when we are being tested. And Vasudev is an example on this. Okay. So, after all this, imagine Krishna is when Vasudev is successful in taking him to Gokul. Krishna is wiping the tears of Vasudev and he's pacifying him and he's allowing him to play with him. Can you just imagine how merciful Krishna is? He's giving him relief. We all will get that relief if we pass that test. If we just simply sit and not do anything, that's it. Our destiny is fail. We'll get the F on our paper. Finish, fail. Now Vasudev is carrying Krishna. As I was telling you that someone who's constantly being repetitively unsuccessful in his task, if I was in the position, or any one of us would be in the position of Vasudev, we would have so many questions. That see, now Krishna is telling us, okay, take me to Gokul. And what Vasudev is doing, he simply carries Krishna and takes to Gokul without a question. If we would be given a service like this, Prabhu, how will we open the handcuff? Who will open the jail doors? What if somebody attacks me? What is the way to go? The Gokul, where is the maps? I need the way. We'll have so many questions, but we will not do the service. Once I'm satisfied, then I will do the service. No, we can have some genuine questions, but we have to do the service. We have to. If you don't do the service, then that's it. Again, collapse. Now, moving forward, time is limited. So, carrying Krishna is very important in our minds as we do our sadhana, just like how Vasudev was doing. All the obstacles and all the anarthas while chanting the holy name of the Lord, while hearing, all will disappear. All the obstacles once we sincerely chant. So when Vasudev he drops Krishna, immediately comes back and ties him, and Kamsa wants to kill the girl, the Yogamaya. Devaki, she's using her nature. She's the daughter of a king. She's using her political nature to convince Kamsa not to kill this girl. And Kamsa does not. Now, what does this mean? We all have different natures. I may be an HR by profession, you are, an engineer by profession, or you may have a way to talk and deal. You have to use that in the service of Krishna. You can attract more, prospective devotees. You can preach Krishna consciousness. So, moving forward, this is also an important point. Now, cutting short the story, then comes Putna story, which we heard yesterday from Premamaya Prabhu's, how he has, very well explained. And, in that, what we find is that having a Sambandh Gyan is very important. Devotional service means that you have to establish a relationship. If you guys don't establish a relationship with Krishna, then I don't think so anything's going to happen. But if you establish even 1% of relationship with Krishna, Srila Prabhupada says that this material life is ended and you're going to go back to Godhead, which is guaranteed. Now we have a lot of attachment to our work, to our bodies, to our toys, to our people, to our friends. That all is fine. But what did the gopis do? Gopis also had a lot of things to do. They had the whole chorus of their house. However, they took the central affection was Krishna. So once your central affection is Krishna, you should not worry about anything. Okay, you have to just look after Krishna. Willing to develop the relationship than fault finding. We will say, Prabhu, see what he's doing, Mataji, see what she is doing. That's not right. Fault finding is easy, but what about the development of the relationship? Fault finding will ruin everything. They will not help you to develop a relationship with Krishna. Okay, so there was also one example. However, I have to cut short. One more demon which comes is Trinavarta. This Raksha, he came to kill Krishna with his stunts. He was going all the way up with his, fancy entertainment, and he carried Krishna and he went all the way up to the sky. Now, when Krishna is not getting impressed by this demon. He's like, "This is like taking me up to the sky," and that's not exciting for him. Krishna ended by increasing his weight, holding onto his neck, and he fell on the ground. Okay, and Krishna is playing on him very blissfully. Now, this can also, we can also in our bhakti or even in our material life, sometimes we can have a lot of pride in us. If this pride comes and we are overpowering, anything, any service, that's also a downfall. So we need to know how to balance this. If we get extra pride in us and you're not humble enough, that's it. So Nan Maharaj, what does he say about this? That all the people from Gopal are saying, how did Krishna do this? Nan Maharaja said that the demon was very, very sinful and the baby was pure and innocent and very pious. So Srila Prabhupada says that there are only three ways to get pity. One is through austerity, like how we kept Ekadashi Vrata yesterday. That is also an austerity that helps Krishna to come closer to us. Ekadashi is not a small task. That is our endeavor, fast and do some austerity for Krishna, and that is very rare. If you guys are doing it, it's a great service. Next is the worship and the praising the Supreme Lord. Right now, we are doing that. You guys are hearing it. I'm speaking, and I'm also hearing it. And doing things for the society. Anything done for the society will bring more auspiciousness. So pity gives rise to protection to the Lord, and protection gives pleasure. So I will end I will pass on to Namamrita with a nutshell summary that if we don't take advantage and we don't take the example of how Vasudev was fixed in Krishna consciousness, and if we all lose this opportunity, we'll go to the darkness. And that the stamp of a failure will come on our head. But Krishna will not leave. 1% done in this material life we are assured to go back to Godhead. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Can we look at joining from the laptop? No? Okay. Because there's an issue with the. Can I disconnect the audio? Disconnect the audio.
Hare Krishna.
And we have to speak on that also.
Hare Krishna. It is. Hare Krishna. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadhanaye Krishna Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Vancha Kalpata Rupyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Kush, for taking us through the Vrindavan journey of our Lord Shri Krishna. So, as we all are assembled here to speak and learn how Krishna's pure devotees have dealt with reversals in life, how no matter how great of a devotee, in every devotee's life there have been difficulties, there have been reversals. So we learn from the inspiration, we learn from examples of great devotees how they have dealt with the difficulties, and no matter what, they have always kept Krishna as their priorities and not the problems. So we've learned, we've seen, heard about Vrindavan. We will move on to Mathura and Dwarka. So Krishna was in Mathura with the inhabitants of the Yadavas. And what happened was, after Krishna killed Kamsa, the two wives of Kamsa, Asti and Prapti, they were widows. And as per Shastric injunction, widows should be under the protection of their grown-up sons or their fathers. And Kamsa, he did not have any grown-up sons. So Asti and Prapti went back to their father, King Jarasan, for the protection and living there. Now, the Jarasan wanted to take revenge from Krishna for killing the husband of his daughters. And what happened? He planned an attack on the main city of Mathura. So all the inhabitants of Mathura, who were the Yadavas, who were family members of Krishna, became very fearful, and they all started to pray to Krishna. When Krishna saw this situation, that his dear devotees, his dear families of Yadavas are going through this suffering and these difficulties, Krishna, with the support of his elder brother, Lord Balram, they also he came into the warfare, and they prepared their own small army. As we see that for protecting Krishna's devotees, Krishna will go to any length. And with the small army that Krishna and Balram had, when they came out of the palace, they saw this huge army of Jarasan. He had horses, elephants, foot soldiers, all of them prepared and surrounded the whole city from all four directions, from all four corners. When the Yadavas saw this, especially the women who were motherly to Krishna, they had gone up to the rooftop to see this, how their beloved Krishna and Balram were facing in the war. Most of them got so fearful and they fainted, seeing that their beloved boys had to face this huge army. But Krishna, for protecting his devotees, had wiped out the entire army of Jarasan, except leaving him alone. And this happened not once, twice, but 17 times. 17 times Krishna and Balram left Jarasan alive alone, and he recouped back with the equal army to attack Mathura. On the 18th time, and Krishna understood this difficulty. To protect the inhabitants of Mathura and the Yadavas, Krishna created a beautiful island where no two-legged animal can go, man or demon. And Krishna created this 96 miles long. Prabhupada explains in the Krishna book, chapter 50, where Krishna created this beautiful island in the center of an island, which was designed by Vishwakarma himself for the protection of his devotees. For the Supreme Lord to protect his devotees, he can do anything. So he safely created this beautiful island called Dwaraka, where all the demigods who are subordinate and dependent to Lord Krishna came and offered their service. It is explained that Kuvera, the treasurer of demigods, presented the art of attaining 8 perfectional stages of material opulences. The demigod Varuna presented a horse. By doing so, all the demigods have proved that they are not independent of Krishna. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Kaviraj Goswami explains, Ekala Ishvara Krishna Arasa Bhavritya. Krishna is the Supreme Lord and everyone else are dependent on him. By this we understand, to protect the inhabitants of Mathura Vasis, Krishna created the beautiful Dwaraka, which was very opulent in all terms. That's why Dwaraka is called the Aishwarya Dham. Another wonderful example when we remember Dwaraka is the wonderful friendship story of Krishna and his Brahmana friend Sudama. All of us know the story, but to summarize, Prabhupada explains that this Brahmana was very poor. He was not dressed nicely, his clothing was torn and dirty. His body was very lean and thin. He did not appear very clean. And because of his weak body, his bones became very distinctly visible. So this was the difficulty, this was the amount of suffering that this Brahmana had to go through. But Sudama, being a Brahmana, was very knowledgeable. He was very sharp, and he maintained all his Brahmanical qualities by serving the Supreme Lord. He was Krishna's childhood friend from the ashram of Sandipani Muni, where Krishna and Sudama were friends, learning the knowledge of Vedas from their teacher. So we learn from the example of Krishna and Sudama that when Sudama had to face reversals in his life, he always kept Krishna as the first and his problems came by side. We can learn this one little lesson from this example, that when our problems come in life, all of us, we may not be able to take up the level of Sudama because he is a very pure devotee of the Lord in a very highly Brahmanical level. But for our level, what we take inspiration is, whenever we have reversals in life, difficulties in life, we always keep Krishna as our priority. In a lecture, Prabhu beautifully explained that you don't go to Krishna and try about your problems. Oh, Krishna, I have this. Krishna, this problem is big. For now, please help me solve this. You go to your problems and you tell, do you know how big my Krishna is? He's much more bigger than you. And I will always keep him in the first. We see when Sudama had to go by when his wife pleaded him to go and meet your friend Krishna. He's the big royal king of Dwaraka and he'll definitely help see your condition. So Sudama, even at that time, when Sudama, even at that time, when he was in his utter difficulty with all of the problems that his wife and children were not able to get food for days together, his mood of going and seeing the Lord was not to gain some material benefit. His mood was, Prabhupada explains that Sudama went to see the Lord only with one intention, that if I go there and I will be able to see the Lord personally, that will be a great opportunity. And even if I don't ask any material benefit from him. So this is the mood of the devotee when he goes to see the Lord. When we come to temple, we can definitely take inspiration from Sudama's example, that when we come to temple, whether or not I get any material benefit, I get to go see my Radha Bharanishwara so personally. I get to take their darshan first. So Sudama, with this mood and intention, went to see the Lord. And we know the beautiful story when Prabhupada explains in Krishna book, when the Brahmana traveled so long and far, when he reached the guards, Krishna from his palace, when Krishna was there in the palace of Rukmini Devi, from the balcony he could see that one Brahmana is walking far from there. And Krishna ran downstairs to go and see his Brahman friend. It's explained that eager than Brahmana to go and see him. Krishna ran and embraced his friend, and all the guards, the Dwarpalakas there were very astonished to see that their king, Dwarkadish Shri Krishna, is coming to embrace this Brahmana, who looked very poor and from a very low class. But Krishna knew that he is his Brahmana friend. Krishna offered all the royal respects to the Brahman Sudama. He made him sit in a royal throne, and Krishna himself bathed the feet of Sudama. Sudama, with eyes filled with tears, was asking Krishna that, "Oh my dear Lord, I don't deserve this." But Krishna was out of love for his devotee, did all of this. So we understand that only devotional service unto the Supreme Lord can bring us out of any difficulty in the life. Prabhupada explains that the Brahmana friend felt great jubilation from Krishna's act. Sudama was very pleased, and as the story continues, Krishna came and Krishna offered Sudama nice food preparations to have, and Rukmini Devi herself, Lakshmi Devi herself, was offering Chamara Seva to them. When Krishna saw Sudama was hiding a bag near his waist, under his waistcloth, Krishna began insisting, "Oh Sudama, please show me what have you brought for me. I see you have some presents for me." But Sudama was very embarrassed to even bring in a handful of chipped rice. Krishna, the merciful Lord, explains that, "Sudama, I am Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I am full-fledged. But when my devotee, out of love and devotion, offers me anything, I accept it." So Krishna accepted those handful of chipped rice from Sudama, and in return, we understand that Krishna blessed the Brahman Sudama. On the way back, when Sudama went, he could see that the place where his hut was there stands a beautiful, magnanimous palace made of jewels. And Sudama was overwhelmed with this reciprocation of Krishna. We understand, Prabhupada explains in the Krishna book that Sudama, after seeing this, had only one prayer to the Supreme Lord, that, "Oh Krishna, I pray to have this friendship of you and to engage in his service and to surrender fully unto you in love and affection." We also can pray to our Lord every time we see him, "Oh Krishna, just please keep me engaged in your services one way or the other. May my mind and activities be always engaged in his service." Prabhupada explains the only way that we can serve Krishna and please Krishna is by engaging our mind and senses in the service of Krishna. By this, we also understand that the Lord is very merciful, and he does not need he will not let his devotees fall down. This is another manifestation of the costless mercy of the Lord upon his devotees. The first interest of the Supreme Lord is that his devotee does not fall. The merciful Shri Krishna understood the Brahmana's intention was not to come and ask any material reciprocation. So Sudama, being in that difficult position, did not want to go and meet Krishna for anything in return. His only intention of meeting the Lord was that he could meet him personally. But Krishna, the all-knowing Lord, as a Paramatma, understood and he blessed the Lord. Prabhupada explains, by this, we have a few take-home lessons, the lessons which we can apply from the episode of Krishna Sudama's story. That Prabhupada explains that this learned Brahmana Sudama, he concluded that whatever opulence Krishna has blessed him with, the material opulences such as fame and all the gifts that Krishna has given him must be used only for the service of the Lord and not for his own sense gratification. We understand that through any difficulty, Krishna always has a better plan for us. Krishna has a greater plan than what we think we have. By doing so, Sudama offered all his newly acquired opulence, and he remained unattached in the spirit of renunciation, and he remained peacefully serving the Supreme Lord. Another example Prabhupada explains here is by offering food to the Supreme Lord and enjoying the opulence of the prasadam. Another take-home lesson for us from this episode is any food that we cook must be offered and we accept the remnants as the prasadam. By doing this, we are actually enjoying the opulence of the prasadam of the Lord. And I would like to conclude by saying that Prabhupada explains that if any opulence that we are blessed with due to our past activities, if any of these opulences are used for sense gratification, then it is only the cause of degradation. And the same opulence, when used in the service of the Lord, is the cause of elevation to our back home, back to Godhead. So from this episode of how the Brahmana friend of the Supreme Lord himself had to go through difficulties and reversals in his life, we understand that our main priority should be to keep Krishna in our first position. We don't go to Krishna and cry about our problems. We come back to our problems and tell how strong our Krishna is. A beautiful words by His Holiness Radha Govindas Goswami Maharaj was, Maharaj explains that Jeevan hamara bigda hai, par rakshak hamara tagda hai. We always are so happy and proud that we have a strong protector of Krishna who will never leave his devotees aloof. He will always protect us from all the difficulties. Hare Krishna. Now, as we have heard about Mathura Krishna and Dwarka Krishna from Vrindavan, we will move on when we will hear how our dear Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya, how he had to face difficulties in his own life. In spite of all of that, Prabhupada always prayed to Krishna to keep him in remembrance of Krishna and never forget Krishna. We will hear more Prabhupada Leelas from Bhaktin Rakshita. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we'll be continuing on the topic of how devotees actually deal with difficulties in their life. Thanks. So we'll be talking about how devotees actually deal with difficulties in their life. And as we've heard about how Krishna's during Krishna Leela, how the devotees dealt with different difficulties in their life, we'll be moving on to Srila Prabhupada and how exactly different situations and how he reacted and how we can actually learn from that. As I started preparing for this class, I realized how unqualified I am to actually even be talking about Srila Prabhupada. So please forgive me if I say anything wrong. Yeah. What we'll be focusing on today will be between 1950 and 1965 of Srila Prabhupada's activities. So to give a little context before I start talking about his pastimes, by 1950, he was married. He had 5 children. He had taken his Diksha from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he also had already, as many of you know, he had his pharmacy business that was running. But what I actually didn't know at least was that it failed. So by now it had already failed. It's we'll be entering in about 1948 types. So Prabhupada actually had this dream, okay, and he's a grihastha at this point, and he had a dream
where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually came in his dream and asked him to take sannyas. And if you see Prabhupada himself, like in Leelamrita, it's written, he wakes up very horrified at this proposal to begin with. But even in Prabhupada's lectures, when he actually talks about it, he's like, I remember being so, what horrible dream this was, how horrifying this is. Because Prabhupada's mindset at that point was that, first of all, he was a grihastha. He had to take care of 5 children and his wife. He had a responsibility to take care of them, right? So what was going through his head was that he wanted to, you know, he had a factory up and running by then in Lucknow, and it was something along the lines of chemicals, and it was doing good, I think, initially. And his was, he will just keep the factory up and running. Whatever revenue is generated, that he will give for Gaudiya Math, that he will give for Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because that's also important, right? Finally, there needs to be funds. So that was what he wanted to do. But that's clearly not what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had in mind for him. So when he got that dream the first time, he was very horrified. And by then, his Lucknow business also started failing. The factory got shut down. He could not pay rent for the factory. He could not pay the factory workers. So what he did is he got few acquaintances and he started another factory in Allahabad. And coincidentally, Allahabad is also where his pharmacy initially failed, like some 15 years back. Yeah, 15 years back around. So this time he goes with his son. He goes to Allahabad. He's trying to get the factory up and running. He's, you know, trying to make the business work. And he gets the dream again. So he's again asleep. And again, he gets in his dream. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comes and he asks him to join him in sannyas. And once more, Prabhupada wakes up and he's like, no, why is he doing this? Why is he coming in my dream again and again? I'm not ready for this. And the Allahabad factory also fails. So now, if we are in such a position, okay, and say you're studying for an exam, because primarily I'm talking to the youth here, right? So say you're studying for an exam, you're studying really hard, or you have some project submissions that you're working really hard for, and you fail that thing, or you like get an average or the below average. What is the first thing that goes through your head? Like, you know, okay, at least from my perspective, Krishna, why Krishna? What are you doing, Krishna? Can't you see how hard I'm working? Can't you see how much I'm doing? Why is this happening? Why me? Why only me? But if you actually see Prabhupada's mood when these things are happening to him, Prabhupada's mood was so different. His outlook was so different. He actually immediately, you know, when he was going through all of this, what according in the Leelamrita incident, what came to his mind was actually a shloka from the Bhagavatam that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would keep quoting very often. So it's Yasyaham anugrihin riyami harishye tad dhanam shanaihi tato dhanam tyajantasya sajana dukkha dukkhitam. So the translation for the verse is, when I feel especially merciful towards someone, I gradually take away all his material possessions. His friends and relatives then reject his poverty-stricken most wretched fellow. So if you see, his outlook on this particular situation was not that Krishna was depriving me of something. In fact, he remembered, first of all, that's such an important thing. He managed to remember what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had mentioned in class, and he managed to correlate his particular situation to what he was going through. Eventually, since, you know, the Allahabad business also failed, Prabhupada, you know, lost interest in everything. And this was 1951, he took Vanaprastha. And then again, he gets a dream. But this time, the dream is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually comes directly from Goloka, from the entourage, and he asks him to join him. So he takes this as a sign of taking sannyasa. And 1959, he takes sannyas. So this particular pastime, why I chose, was because two key takeaways I saw in this particular pastime. One, he saw the mercy of Krishna in whatever he was going through. He didn't take it as a reason to blame Krishna for anything or push Krishna away. Generally, if something doesn't go our way materially, we want to blame it on someone else because we're not willing to take that upon ourselves. We think it's never our fault and we always want to blame it. And obviously, who else is there to blame other than the higher person that we always worship, right? So Krishna, this is on you. But he didn't find that. He found it as a reason to see Krishna's mercy in what was happening. The second key takeaway here is he managed to correlate it with something he heard in a class, with something he heard, probably read, which is so important for us, whether you realize it or not. Generally, when we come for classes, we come for class thinking in 20 minutes prasadam is going to start. I will sit. Once it's done, I'll eat my prasadam, I'll take and go. Or we come thinking, oh, this person is watching me, so I should sit with my back straight and not fall asleep today. That's what mindset generally we come and sit in the class. We don't come with the mindset of thinking that, oh, I have to actually pay attention. Maybe there's something that I can learn, right? It's so important for us to be able to register what we actually learn, what we hear in classes, because one particular line, one particular shloka is all the difference that it can make when you're in that particular, in that situation, in that mental state when you can't think straight. That line will come hit you, and that's when you remember, oh yeah, Krishna is actually there with me. Why am I freaking out so much? And very coincidentally, Ghanshyam Prabhuji, who actually takes Bhakti Shastri for us, he spoke about this yesterday during a Bhakti Shastri class of how we can actually, so even if I listen to 10,000 classes, when I'm in that state, when I'm in that particular mood where everything is going wrong, if my consciousness, not consciousness, if my intelligence is bewildered, there is no use. I will not be able to access that part of my memory from which I can draw these, important lines or the important shlokas. So he actually mentions this is where your chanting plays a very important part, because the more you chant, the more steady you become. Dhira, like you mentioned, the more steady-minded you become, and the more you can think clearly when you're put in such situations. So that's where you continuously chant, just so that you can, what do you say, steady yourself. Yeah, basically like get rid of all of the anarthas that will be there. So this was the first pastime. Anyways, after this, Prabhupada, he takes sannyas, he goes to Vrindavan, and then he decides that, for printing books and for, in general, just preaching wise, it's just, he found Delhi, since it's a metropolitan city, there'll be a larger number of people, more audience. So he started traveling back and forth between Vrindavan and Delhi. And in Delhi, he didn't even have a place. So since Prabhupada actually took sannyas, his only source of income was his books. Whatever he'd sell, he'd get the money he'd use for personal maintenance and for, again, once more printing the books and everything. So when he'd go to Vrindavan, he'd go stay in the temple, right? So he didn't have a room in Vrindavan, so there would be like there was a Radhakrishna temple which actually had a very small room. So he would use that room and he would stay there. And first of all, at that age, he was 69 at that point, and traveling to Vrindavan so often. And it was not just that, he was a one-man army, quite literally, because from what do you say, translating the books or writing his books, to proofreading it, to actually finding papers, going to the printing shop, making sure it gets printed, and then even for distributing it. He was quite literally a one-man army. And along with all of this, what he'd be doing is he'd stay up for long hours just translating his books. He'd give Bhagavatam classes in the morning and the evening for whoever would come to the temple. So during this particular period of time, he was in Delhi, and he would go on the streets trying to get people to read the Back to Godhead magazines and the books that he was selling, right? His mindset was very clear. I am giving people peace, love, harmony. What is there for them to not take it, right? It's a single message that's so alluring. Why would they not take it? That's the mood that Prabhupada actually went on the road distributing his books. And the people in India were apathetic to everything that Prabhupada did. They were at least bit interested in what was actually happening. And Prabhupada was struggling to actually get his things to sell. And, imagine at that age, doing so much, going in that heat. So for us here, little hot also outside means Hare Krishna. I will come in the evening, Prabhu, not morning programs. It's too hot. We can't come out. Right? We choose comfort over anything else at any point in time. That was not the case for Prabhupada. When he would actually go out on the road in that really hot sun in Delhi, and at that point he had a heat stroke at one point, and it's not like he had companions with him who would constantly take care of him, making sure all his needs were met. He was alone. So when he had that heat stroke, he was alone. And at one point he actually even got hit by a bull when he was trying to distribute his books. Now, if we were in that similar situation, see, the first thing that I mentioned, the first pastime was on a material level. If you see all of his attempts that were failing, but that they were on a material level. This was a spiritual attempt that he was doing, and it was still failing. if we do the same thing and we see that spiritually things are not working out, we think it's Krishna's message for us to not do it. Because, Krishna is clearly sending me signals. He's right. Krishna knows everything. I should just like chill. It's fine. No need. That's what goes through our head. But that was not the case of Prabhupada. Because here you see, he took the instruction of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur to heart. And it was something that he truly had belief in. And the purpose, he believed in the purpose. He had motivation to actually fulfill the purpose. So Prabhupada, this is actually surprising for me, but Prabhupada majored in economics, philosophy, and English. It was not a normal lawyer, doctor, engineer that you have in India. So it was quite different. So because of this, he was a good business. He also ran businesses before. So he was like, yeah, okay, this audience isn't working. Let me just change my target audience completely. So he decided to go like 10,000 miles away just to find a new target audience. Again, he had no guarantee it was going to work, right? He was just not willing to give up until he had exhausted all the options that he had, which is something that is so important for us. Spiritually, when we get an instruction through our guru, and again, maybe you won't always have a direct instruction through a guru. It may be through a representative of a guru. If you're not initiated, it may be something through your parents. It may be something through a representative, anyone in the temple, any devotee in the temple. It's so important for us to understand that we must do our best to make sure it's done. We can't try once and think, okay, I'm done for the day, let's go home. No, it's not like that. You try, and if it doesn't work, keep trying till you've exhausted all possible options that you have. That's the most important key takeaway from here. Because see, finally, you have to have faith that the instruction that they have given you, there's a purpose behind it, and you can't see why Krishna is giving it to you yet. We don't know how Krishna works, right? Krishna doesn't always directly come and say, hi, let's be friends today. Like, no, Krishna doesn't do that. Yeah, he comes through different means, different people, different platforms, and we should always be openly willing to, see different means through which he approaches, and we should be willing to take that up in any way. So that's one thing here. First is that you get any seva, you get any instruction, you get any opportunity, make sure you do your best to do it no matter what. Don't give up just after one attempt because it didn't work out the way you wanted it to work out. Because if that was the case, then everyone would be going to Goloka Vrindavan after chanting one round only. There was no need for so much. And the second thing that's most important here is having motivation, no matter what, even when it gets hard. See, Prabhupada, he was just like, okay, I will just change my target audience completely, something 10,000 miles away, no assurance it's going to work. But he was like, okay, it's not working in India, I'll just go to the US and try it. That is something that's really important. You should have motivation to continue doing whatever you started doing. And then anyways, so after this, Prabhupada decides to go to the US. That's not an easy task either, because many people are like, you're so old, we can't get you the forms. But somehow with the help of Srimati Murarji, they, arranged the Jaladuta. And on 13th August 1965, he boards Jaladuta. And actually, he spends Janmashtami on Jaladuta. And that time also, he manages to get all devotees on, like all the devotees on board on deck, and make them all have prasadam. And Prabhupada actually spent his 70th birthday on the ship. Like he was all alone, but like he spent it on the ship. And during his time on the Jaladuta, Prabhupada actually maintained a diary, and it's like he would write just about like daily things, and it was not even something where he just wrote about Krishna consciousness like so much. He was a very observant person. If you read his diaries, it's mostly about observing the surroundings, and he would write a lot about those entries, but he would connect it to Krishna. But you would see he had very sharp eyes, that no matter what, he was very observant. In the first week, if you see his diary entries, it's all just about seasickness. All just about seasickness. He got so seasick, and if you read like the words that he's written, he's just written, he had headache, vomiting tendency, no hunger, dizziness, and no energy to work. These are literally what he has written in his diary. And even then, he continued to preach to the captain, continued to preach to the captain's wife, to the people on board, and also like continued to translate his books. He did not stop. On the 13th day on board of Jaladuta, he had his first heart attack. And if you read the Lilamrita, the Satsarupa Das Goswami Maharaj writes of how Prabhupada found his way through the heart attack by only meditating on the purpose of his mission. That was the one thing that if you actually see throughout Prabhupada's, journey from the very time he took Vanaprastha till the very time, the Hare Krishna explosion happens, like Hayagriva Das Prabhu puts it. It was purely that instruction that drove him more than anything else. But anyways, that piece of instruction was what he meditated upon, that helped him really find his way through it. Again, the second night also, he had another heart attack. And Prabhupada was very sure that if a third heart attack came, he would not make it through. But, that night Krishna came in his dreams, and it was Krishna along with his many forms, and they were rowing a boat. And, he gave him assurance that don't worry, you'll be safe, don't fear. And just asked him to come along with him. So Prabhupada took this as a sign of protection that Krishna was actually giving him. So it was more of reassurance for him. It's just, these are actually just one of many health problems. The reason why I brought this up was because if you see full life Prabhupada's gone through many things. First of all, at that old age, to decide to venture to a completely new journey with a new place, with no money, with nothing, that is scary. Like even now, if any of us think about going to a new city, the first thing will be like, no, because change is the scariest thing for most of us, if not all of us. And more than that, if you see, later on in 1967, Yamuna Mataji actually talks about how Srila Prabhupada had a stroke. And I did not know about this. I don't know how many people know about this. He had a stroke. His left side was completely paralyzed. And, he actually wrote to these devotees who were in San Francisco that, please pray. And if you pray for me, like the prayer, the mood again, when he asked them to pray was just that I have not completed, like my spiritual master has not completed his mission yet. Please pray so that I can complete my mission. That was the mood in which he asked them to pray. So this particular thing of why I wanted to bring it up was because we find 1,010,000 excuses just to not do one small thing we start. The minute we face the smallest, thing that is little against us also, the smallest reversal, the smallest thing that doesn't go our way, anything that you start, it's not bound to be an easy journey. Say even with your sadhana, maybe you have had a long day, you've had a really long day. By the time you get home, you didn't get a chance to chant your rounds, you don't want to do it, it's already so late. 16 rounds, tomorrow I'll do, no problem, it's fine, one day it's okay. It's so easy to think like that. You see how much Prabhupada struggled. If he had taken even one day break, we would not have had how much we have today. Prabhupada didn't have the concept of break. He used that body that he had to the fullest extent that he could. This particular thing that I brought up was just so that we can think about how much are we actually utilizing. See, finally, I'm not trying to invalidate anyone's problems, because I understand that all of us go through our own things. But we can at least try a little to follow in the legacy that he's left behind for us, right? So anyways, he reaches the US, and then initially he goes to Sally Agarwal and Gopal Agarwal's house. And there again, if you see, Prabhupada actually, he was, for the first day, he was living on a couch in their hall, because there was no other place for him anywhere else. And then eventually they relocated him to the YMCA, so he would just come home during the daytime. Night he'd go back there. But the point of Sally Agarwal and Gopal Agarwal's houses, if you see, they would have meat at home. They would have meat in the refrigerator, and they would also smoke. All the people that would come home would also smoke. And one time, actually, Prabhupada came home early from his walk or something. So they were all having actually meat for dinner. And Prabhupada, Sally Agarwal had grown fond of Prabhupada by then, and she respected him a lot. So, she apologized. I'm so sorry, Prabhupada, please don't come inside. We have meat. Meat is being cooked at home right now, so please don't come in. So Prabhupada only says, oh, nothing of it, don't think of it. And he just continues. He goes back, he goes to the room, nothing to think much about it. Same thing goes for smoking cigarettes. She would avoid smoking cigarettes in front of him because out of respect, but the guests who would come over never had that concept. So even with that, he would just, say the same thing. Nothing, don't think of it, don't think much of it, nothing to think of it. Then after this, Prabhupada moved on to New York. And in New York, he lived with Dr. Mishra initially. Now, the thing with Dr. Mishra is, as hospitable as he was an impersonalist, and he believed in impersonalism being higher than actually Krishna. So Prabhupada didn't get the opportunity to even preach about the glories of Krishna, because so Dr. Mishra would not allow Prabhupada to even talk to his what do you say, his students, because he was like, it's finally competition, because if I believe in something, you believe in something else, I'm not going to let you talk to my people, right? It was more of that mindset that these people had. So with Dr. Mishra also, he didn't allow Prabhupada to preach, he didn't allow Prabhupada to do anything. So Prabhupada was thinking, I've come all the way to the US, I'm like stuck with someone who's not going to let me preach. Did I come here to not have my freedom? But if you see, Prabhupada still did not ever, not show gratitude for what he had with these people. As much as it was these two incidents, and even after this call, but I will not be touching upon that today, Prabhupada showed the highest amount of tolerance as you can with all the people in the US initially when he went, because he knew their condition, but he also saw how they were favorable towards him. They never showed anything against him. They were never, maybe a little with Dr. Mishra, but still he provided food, clothing, shelter. And Prabhupada, when he went to the US, he literally had 40 rupees, which you can't even use over there, right? And it was only with the help of the captain, he got $20 when he sold his Bhagavatam one set. So finally, if you see with the way he dealt with these people, even though it does sound difficult, and it is a difficulty, because for us, we can't imagine being in a position. See, most of you all right now will be going to universities, and when you do go to universities, you will come across a lot of people who will be, not necessarily following all the 4 regulative principles. And it may not sound like a challenge now, but when you actually go, it really is a huge challenge. So the most important thing is, Prabhupada never took their association. That is one thing that we need to see over here. Prabhupada didn't take their association, he gave them his association. He never imbibed their qualities, but they genuinely had an impact left behind by his little time that he spent with them over there. That's first thing. And second thing, even though they were doing all of this, he tolerated it because he saw how much they were helping. I'm not saying that we must encourage their behavior. We cannot, because those are the 4 foundation regulative principles laid down for us. But if we see their inclination towards Krishna consciousness, make use of it. Preach to them. Don't immediately shun them just because they're following some regulative principles that you don't agree with. Slowly bring them into Krishna consciousness. Try to get them to stop their bad habits. So these are 2 things that we can see with how he dealt with, Dr. Mishra, and even with Sally and Gopal Agarwal. Anyways, eventually Prabhupada moved out of Dr. Mishra's place, because obviously it was so, restricting. There was no point of him staying there. So he moved out to a different apartment, which was, I think, in the same building actually. And the thing with that is, he was happy. He finally had his own place. He was doing his own work. He was fine. And by then, our Hayagriva Prabhu that we know today, many of you probably know from the Hare Krishna explosion, Harvey Cohen, he had started attending. So, a couple of regulars had started coming in by then from Dr. Mishra's place. So once he was he had his own apartment now and all that, right? And he had his typewriter, obviously, that he would use for writing all of the books and all the translations. And at Dr. Mishra's place, one nice well-wisher, whatever, gave a tape recorder that he would use for recording his lectures. So one day Prabhupada goes out, he comes back home, and he sees like the whole place is robbed. He's lost his, the voice recorder as well as the typewriter. Yeah. So he sees that both are stolen. And if you see, Prabhupada's actually written in one letter to his godbrothers that it was about 1,000 rupees, and which now what probably doesn't sound like a lot, is 5 ED, but at that point money was tied to him. So he saw how much money was gone, and like he felt so dejected. Like if you read Prabhupada, actually, I think he speaks about this in one class. He was like, I was so depressed by it. I immediately went down to the dock, and I, checked for rates to go back home, to go back to India, because what was the point? Every time Prabhupada seemed to be making some progress, he was back to square one. It's like playing snakes and ladders, but you're always at the 0th position. You never go up the ladder. So it was like that type of a feeling for him. So one thing is here that we can understand from this particular story is there will come difficulties in life, many difficulties, and feeling dejected is normal. Like it's okay even if you feel dejected, but how you act upon that dejection is what makes a difference. How you see the situation makes a difference. What your perspective is when you're looking at it. Every time Prabhupada wanted to go back home, He remembered his spiritual master. He remembered his spiritual master's words, and those drove him more than anything else, right? So even if you're feeling down, remember a reason behind what you're doing. Say you're a student, say you're working, Grihastha. If you're a student, why are you studying? Why do you have to work so hard? You're studying so that maybe you can get into a good college. Why do you want to get into a good college? So that maybe you can get a good job. Why do you want to get a good job? So that you can use it in the service of Krishna. Even you're studying right now, whatever you're studying, you will be impacting many people around you with your Krishna conscious philosophy, with your Krishna conscious principles. Whether you realize it or not, you are giving them your association by even by talking about, I go to ISKCON, even by telling them one few things about Krishna consciousness, it impacts their life whether you realize it or not. So finally, you are doing your dharma because you are doing it as a service to Krishna. So at every point, remember that you're doing it just to please the Lord. Don't think of it like I'm studying for my parents, I'm studying so that I can earn a lot of money. I mean, even if you do, at least think of using that money for Krishna. At least have that mindset that no matter what you're going to do finally in life, even the smallest of thing, drinking water, oh, Rasoham Apsukanteya. Just try to correlate every small thing that you do to Krishna, and things become so much easier to do. You find a purpose behind doing it. Because finally, see, once you're in, ISKCON, you know how temporary this life is. It's easy for us to think there's no use if I study, I'm finally going to die anyway. So like nothing's going to be associated to this body. So it's fine, even if I do bad, what's a big deal, right? But that's where the difference of mindset comes in, that you're doing it for Krishna, because there is reaction in doing, there is reaction in not doing also. Okay, finally, if you are going to withhold yourself from doing an activity thinking that's renunciation, it's not. You're still going to get karma for it. So it's better to just do it as a service to Lord Shri Krishna. So that you can learn from this, because finally Prabhupada remembered when he went to the doctor that the reason why he's doing this was for his Guru Maharaj. No one else mattered. So he finally came back understanding it was for Krishna and for his Guru. After this, Prabhupada actually started writing to his, after this, Harvey Cohen, Haigriva Prabhu at the time, he was going to San Francisco. So he had a loft in New York in the Bowery region, which is supposed to be the worst region in the whole area, in like whole of New York. And like the best part is it had just been burglarized, and he still gave Prabhupada and this one, another person who just attended, I think, one class of Prabhupada before, David Allen. He rented it out to them, and he asked them, both of them, to come and share. And it blew my mind when I read it was just burglarized, but he still told them to come stay there. And anyways, after that, they both came and they started sharing, and everyone told Prabhupada, actually, don't go to that area. It's like the worst area. It's the shadiest area in the whole of New York. But anyways, Prabhupada still did it because, he just had everything taken from him in that apartment, so he didn't want to stay there anymore. Once he went to the loft in the Bowery, what he started doing was he started writing a lot of letters to his godbrothers in India, and just trying to get funds to start a temple there. Prabhupada actually had really grand dreams for the loft that he was staying in, because first of all, his roommate David Allen was a very he showed a lot of promising character in at least progressing in Krishna consciousness. He showed a lot of promise, like he showed so much interest. Prabhupada also got so excited. If you see Prabhupada's letters, Prabhupada started writing letters to Sumati Muraji, who actually helped him come to the US, saying, make way for both me and, this one boy. He's showing a lot of promise. He's showing a lot of character. He's going to become a good devotee. And like to other people also, his godbrothers in India. If you see, there's this one particular letter that he writes to his godbrothers in India, which was, there's this boy, he's like really good, he's showing a lot of promise. I want to bring him to Vrindavan Dham. He's giving up all his bad qualities one by one. Smoking, drinking and all is very normal here. Other than that, he's reducing his anger and all. So Prabhupada didn't even consider, the smoking, drinking, gambling, intoxication as a bad quality at that point, because he knew how fallen they were. But he saw that they were showing, that he was showing interest and he was showing care and concern for Prabhupada, which is what helped him, build so many dreams for that apartment that they were sharing together. He wanted to get Radha Krishna, he wanted to build a grand temple. So two separate incidents I'll be talking about. First, I'll talk about how much he reached out to his godbrothers and how the response was. And the second, I'll be talking about the David Allen and his, their incidents. And then if you see with godbrothers, he wrote so many letters. Initially, response was, let's see, no, and then responses only stopped coming. Actually, there was one of Prabhupada's godbrother's disciples who wanted to come to New York and help. And obviously, Prabhupada was not going to refuse any help, right? Any companion is fine to help. And what happened is, finally that godbrother found out and shut him down and was like, no, you're not going. You can't go help Prabhupada like that. So if you see, even in Prabhupada's classes, letters that he's written to all of his disciples, it's all about, my godbrothers never supported me. They always suppressed me. They always repressed me, which is why I went separately, because Prabhupada only cared about the mission. The godbrothers liked politics. They had the whole land thing. I have this, I need that. But Prabhupada only cared about the mission, what his guru instructed him. And he also talks about how they were envious of him. So this teaches us a very important thing. What are you doing? To make noise. So one thing that this particular lesson teaches us a lot is about how do you deal with envious people. In your life, you're going to have a lot of people who will try to bring you down. Whether you realize it or not, they may appear from the outside to be similar to you, and they may appear to be someone who's your well-wisher and who will always try to uplift you no matter what, but you don't know how they may be. And the minute you find out that they're not, working towards your wellness, if they're purposefully trying to harm you or hurt you, it's better to distance yourself from them. Even Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj talks about it. I think recently there was a question asked him in one of the Bhagavatam classes, how do you deal with people who are envious of you? And he mentioned that even for him, he had devotees who were envious of him. But when Prabhupada, even if you see Prabhupada also, he did try reaching out to them, right? He reached out to them, he tried to get their help. They only didn't want to help. They were only continuously shunning him. So even with Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, he talked about how he did try to reach out to them and, try to patch things up. But when it didn't work, when he realized they still had ill intentions towards him, he just distanced himself. So that's one very important thing we see from here, because Prabhupada completely distanced himself from his godbrothers the minute he realized he was not getting any help from them. Maybe later on he patched things up, but at that instance when he saw how they were harboring feelings towards him, he distanced himself. So that's one thing. We need to be very cautious of people who don't have good wishes for us. The second thing is about David Allen. So David Allen was showing a lot of promise. Prabhupada was building his hopes up. He had this whole image in his mind of what he wanted to do. The only issue that was there was that David Allen would take LSD, marijuana, basically substance abuse. And the thing with this is, it may seem like it's nothing at first and it's easy to pull out of, but once it becomes a habit, it's quite hard to actually pull someone out of a drug addiction. So at that point, he started abusing LSD a lot. So one particular night, he was on, a drug, and he was quite going crazy. Like he started moaning and like running around the house, like very dazed. And then he goes up to Prabhupada and he goes to Prabhupada with a crazy killer eyes. Like we read the Satsvarup Das Goswami Maharaj's Prabhupada Lilamrita, he talks about how it's crazy killer eyes. It's not the familiar person that, Prabhupada was always used to seeing. So he actually tried to attack Prabhupada. What did Prabhupada do in this instance? He immediately got up and he ran. And there were 4 flights of stairs. First of all, Prabhupada used to climb 4 flights of stairs every day. That is so much for us. Temple only tired by the time we reach up. And he ran out, and that area, like I mentioned before, was a very shady area, was a very sketchy area. So people would get robbed there all the time. People would be sleeping on the road and Prabhupada would just step over them like all the time. Like that was very normal there in that area. Yeah. Prabhupada just ran out immediately. So that's another thing that we have to pay attention to. See, initially things may seem to be very rosy, kind, whatever. But the minute we see malice coming from the other end, there is wrong intent from the other end towards us, we must learn to distance ourselves from them. As long as there's promise being shown, it is good to help and teach them. Because even if you see before this, one of the other disciples, Carl, actually wanted to learn Sanskrit. So Prabhupada started teaching Sanskrit because he saw the interest for Sanskrit. But the minute he saw interest was not there, he also withdrew. He's like, it's fine. I'm not going to push myself on them, right? So that's this thing. This was more about I just wanted to touch upon dealing with other people. If you see that they're still being favorable to you, no matter what, even if their qualities may not be the best, it is good to give your association to them so that you can make a difference. If you see that there is wrong intent and they really wish bad for you, please distance yourself from them. It's not worth the drama and the toxicity. Um, anyways, this was mainly what I wanted to cover. And after this, it anyways worked out for the best ones. Prabhupada left David Allen. 13 July 1966, they found matchless gifts, and then Hare Krishna explosion, like I give up Prabhu's told. One other thing that I want to touch upon for our age, particularly youth, is about loneliness. If you see Prabhupada for 20 years of his life, ever since he took Vanaprastha up until he got his very first disciple, Prabhupada didn't have a constant companion. I mean, so-called, the one that you can see at least. He didn't have a constant companion as such that he could see all the time. He didn't have someone, you know, who was always there, like his cheddy buddy, like holding hands, running around. He didn't have any of that, right? But if you actually see it happens with us also. Many of the times we do end up feeling like we are alone, and you know, whenever you may have a best friend, you may have a sibling, you may be very tight with your parents, and all of that is really good. But if there is something, if by chance you ever feel there's something in your life that you can't share with anyone in the whole world, any single person in the whole world, you think it may be a burden, or you think it's something so personal you can't talk to anyone about, it's so important for us to realize. And you know, I think this is where you can draw inspiration from Prabhupada. There's this one particular quote that Prabhupada has told about loneliness, which is something that I had actually kept for a really long time in my room, because when you're going to college, you're finally going to be alone. You're not going to know anyone over there. It feels like you're restarting your whole life. So like this, it's a nice quote if you guys want it. I mean, it's just, these feelings of loneliness are simply temporary manifestations due to past conditioning, and we should try to concentrate our attention to our eternal friendship with Krishna. Right? So Prabhupada may have appeared to not have any companions, but if you see in the Jaladuta, Prabhupada actually writes 2 poems, okay? 2 like 8 stanza poems. And whenever he writes, he always mentions, today I open my heart to my dear companion Krishna, to my dear friend Krishna, to my philosopher Krishna. And it's very fascinating actually. If you see the way Prabhupada writes letters to his disciples, he always gives such a fatherly figure and, you know, such a person you can rely on. But if you see with the prayers he's written to Krishna, it's Krishna, please, I'm the most fallen, I'm the most, you know, all the 2 drastic personalities of Prabhupada you can very clearly see in these prayers. But anyways, the point of what I'm talking about is Krishna. If you see the way he mentions Krishna, you can see that he was never truly alone, because of how much, first of all, his guru lived with him through Vani, through his instructions so strongly. If he had it embedded in his mind, it was like, first of all, his guru was on his right shoulder, and second was Krishna. No matter what, no matter where he went, never once will you ever see Prabhupada think that he was alone, or that Krishna did something, or that Krishna's hand was not there. That's a bigger thing. He never thought Krishna's hand was not there. He always saw it as a mercy of Krishna no matter what. So that's the second thing. He always felt Krishna and Guru. He was always backed by them. So he never felt alone. That's something so important for us. Even with, you know, carrying deities, if you see, he would try to, whenever possible, keep them along with him in the, you know, carry on, rather than put them in check-in, because he considered the deities to be none other than Krishna. You know, there was this question that was actually asked to Jabtaka Swami Guru Maharaj, like, why don't the deities reciprocate with us? Why don't they, you know, talk back to us when we talk to them so earnestly? And he answered, who said? And he was like, there's Raghav Pandit, who's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's mentioned his pastime. He had so much faith and love in Krishna, and he believed the deities to be none other than Krishna himself, that whenever he offered, the deities would actually come and take the offerings. And Guru Maharaj also mentioned that because whether you agree or not, somewhere in your heart you have that apprehension that, oh, it's these deities are like stone or like they're mud, and that's why they're not going to reciprocate with you on the same level that you expect them to reciprocate with. So the whole point is, whenever you do feel like you can't talk to anyone in the whole world about something that's going through your head, please go sit in front of a picture of, you know, some of Krishna, or, you know, if you have a deity, go sit in front of the deity and please talk to him about it. It makes a difference whether you agree with me or not. Try it, because you will notice of how he will reciprocate back, whether through a sign, through someone, through some indication. He will, no matter what, reciprocate with you, and he will also give you the strength. If you have some spiritual advisor, spiritual guide, spiritual friend that you can talk about it, it's well and good, it's really good. But if you can't, you need to understand that Krishna is always there with you, and doing this regularly, it's a very healthy habit, because it helps you develop and inculcate a very nice relationship with Krishna, because at that point you're actually considering him as a friend, and you're just talking about your life to him like you would talk to any other friend, rather than someone who is just occasionally like Hare Krishna, and that you go and bow down to in the temple or like at your altar at home. So I just wanted to touch upon these 5 main topics because I felt they were more relevant for our age group, and they will be things that you will encounter in life. So it was just more about how you can apply them. I'm really very, very sorry if I have offended anyone in any way. I don't mean to invalidate any of the difficulties that anyone goes through. It was just a means of changing the perspective and vision with which you view these difficulties. And I would like to end today's, like at least my part of today's class with, please read Prabhupada's books. If you read Leelamrita and you see how much difficulty he's gone through in his life to give us, these books, you will not want to take even another second for granted, because he has put his blood, sweat and tears into every single word in this book. Every single word in this can be interpreted in a different way. It's that beautiful, like all of his writings. So obviously chanting is the most important, because that is our Yuga Dharma. But please, please, please also read his books. Try reading just 10 minutes a day also. That's also okay, but just read his books. So yeah, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, the youths of ISKCON Balramdesh. It was such a wonderful session. It is the topic which you have selected. It's very, very difficult topic. Even the most senior devotees will think twice. Hare Krishna. Just 2-3 points only. I just, because of time constraint, I will just repeat the salient points which the devotees they mentioned here. Bhakta Kush, your points was very nice. And 2 points which I wanted to make here is that even a small endeavor which we make in the Krishna consciousness, it will make us to go back to Godhead. It was so nice. And just simply following the Ekadashi Vrata, you will attract Krishna towards you. You have given us so much promising statements, and it was so positive in all your lecture. And next, Bhakti Namamrita, Supreme Lord does everything and anything to protect his devotees. The mood of Sudama is not to get material benefit, but to see the Lord. The only devotees can bring us out of, only devotional service can bring us out of the difficulties in our life. And you have very nicely concluded with Radha Gonswami Maharaj's statement. So it was so nice to hear from the young devotees. Next, Rakshita, Bhakti Rakshita, I think you have read the whole of Leelamrita. You have mentioned, see Krishna's mercy in each and everything, whatever we come across. Come out of the comfort zone to serve Lord Sri Krishna. Keep your motivation to continue what you are doing in your devotional service. Srila Prabhupada didn't take the association of the others, but instead he made them to take his association. So wonderful. There are so many things to repeat, so many takeaway points. Finally, the point which you concluded, please, please, please read Srila Prabhupada books, 10 minutes. It's really, it's a lesson for all of us. Just by the youths, simply by just studying how you are so much, you have been transformed. We need to understand this point, and we need to follow this. Thank you very much for all of you. We learned so many things from you. And thank you for the organizers, His Grace Balwant Prabhu, for nicely taking up this youths of Balramdesh and guiding them in the spiritual path.
Hare Krishna. Dhanavad Pranam to all of you. Tomorrow we continue the celebration of Radhashtami festival. Tomorrow the special class will be Srila Prabhupada, the personification of Vyavasatmika Buddhi. The class will be given by His Grace Srivas Pandit Prabhuji. So now, because of it's now time constraint, we will straight away go to Narsimharthi. The video show we will postpone it for tomorrow. Hare Krishna, I will request any our senior devotees who would like to bless the children. Can please. Balan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Bol, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. You can start Nrsimharthi.
Yeah. Anna, anyone wants to glorify the children? Yes. Otherwise, we can go for Narsimharthi.
Yeah, we will go for Garsha and see, Prabhu. It's already 9:20, so we'll directly go. Yeah,
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare. Audio is closed.
Media, can you please play the song, or can Balram Prabhu unmute?
Hare Krishna, thank you very much to all of you. We are requesting the devotees to join us again tomorrow evening, Sandhya Arati, and followed by the special class as usual. Hare Krishna, Dhanvat Pranam, Vacha, Vishya, Kripa, Sindhu, Devacha, Patita Nam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namo. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, we would like to thank our IB Media team, all the devotees. Hare Krishna. Mataji, we can close now.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.